So we're going to move on to a discussion. This slide just sort of reaffirms what I was just saying. Is there some sort of method, or do you just punch these things till they go off? This is what I was talking about, where the FLSA talks about the different identifications, and you can see that the computer professionals, that $9.13 an hour never passed the adjudication by the Supreme Court, so I don't think that's correct. Or $9.13 a week. $9.13 a week. Wow, 36 grand a week, 72, 144 a month. Wow, that puts you at like 1.8 million a year. Well, that's not off the deep end for tons and tons of people that work in big corporations at the executive level. Right? Something to aspire to, $9.13 an hour. So at any rate, if you will be asked to do this, if you're like, I don't know if somebody's exempt or not, this is the table you would look at. Oh, under professional, you've got to have a bachelor's in chemistry to be a microbiologist, then they're professional.
So, you
Go
have to
ahead.
hit all of those metrics for the title that you're trying to meet.
Yeah.
Like under computer professional, I would have to meet all of those.
Yeah. And then it makes a statement, two very important statements at the bottom. Blue-collar workers are always entitled to overtime pay, and very specifically included are our firefighters, our EMTs, our police officers, things like that. But the key issue down here is in the note, putting someone on salary doesn't mean he or she is exempt. That is a widely misconceived notion, both from an employee standpoint and an employer standpoint. Employers will do it. I don't think they're just trying to be greedy, or conducting malfeasance. I think a lot of them honestly just aren't conversant with the Fair Labor Standards Act. But of course, as we all know, ignorance of the law does not buy you the ability to not comply with it. Okay, also in the Fair Labor Standards Act, what did we decide? 1938 it was passed as part of the New Deal under FDR. First time we had any restrictions on child labor. My parents were both born 1915 and 1917, and I mean way later in life. They've both since passed, but they both grew up working from very, very young ages. They were major farmers in South Dakota. So, and there was no restrictions on that. My dad worked in a meat packing plant when he was like 10, 11 years old after school. Heavy equipment and blades, and I mean, you can imagine, right? There was no child labor laws in this country. 1938, first time we had child labor laws. Basically, and it hasn't changed a whole ton since. Basically, it says 16 or 17, once you hit 16, you're not limited on the number of hours a week you can work, although you still can't work around hazardous occupations. When you're 14 and 15, you can work, but you've got limited hours around school. So you can't work a 40-hour week when you're 14. And then this has really been the only thing that's changed. This has been a result of the corporate ag lobby to allow kids as young as 10 and 11 to hand harvest. This is really migrant workers between the 1st of June and the 15th of October. So if you've ever been up on the flatbed in late July and early August, you'll see a lot of migrant kids working the cherries, and they will work them on move. I think they go from here to the West Coast, or a little bit more temperate, and then they have tutors who travel with them. So they will actually work in the fields through the middle of October. So I don't know how you feel about that, but it's what the law is. If you do employ kids, particularly hand harvesters, you better have a certificate of age on file. Very, very, very stiff provisions for violating those. Okay, what does the FLSA specifically not cover? And again, these are really common misconceptions. They've got to pay me for Christmas Day. No, they don't. They've got to give me breaks. No, they don't. They've got to, pay for me to go to my parents' funeral. No, they don't. Okay, those are all benefits.
So I worked at a job and they were like adamant that I take a break, at least 15-minute break every so many hours, and they're like, you have to by the law.
State laws. Some state laws mandate breaks. Okay, we don't have a mandated break in Montana. The Fair Labor Standard Act does not mandate breaks. Anybody who's ever employed people know that you only breaks if you want them to maintain productivity. So that was obviously the best HR policy.
It was annoying because I didn't want to always take a break. Every 4 hours, I'm like, I'll do it at lunch.
Right.
But they're so worried about it.
Yeah, particularly a more employee-related, Yeah, California, Delaware, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, you can guarantee those are liberal states with employee-oriented laws.
So how does it work if a business is incorporated in one state where they have a mandate for so many breaks, so many hours?
Good question.
But they're like operating in Montana, per se.
Yeah, if you're operating in Montana, then you're confined to Montana state employment
So they
law.
wouldn't have to.
So yeah, a great example. So say that I'm J.R. Pritchard and I've got chemical plants in 7 different states. They're all going to have different minimum wages. They're all going to have different unemployment contracts. And they're all going to have different minimum wage laws.
I'm sure if that was at all tied to where they were based out.
Good question, though. Okay, so just be aware that there's a whole lot of things the Fair Labor Standards Act doesn't cover. The 2 big things it covers, 3 big things, minimum wage, overtime, and child labor. Okay, and this might seem pretty obvious, but it's not always as obvious as you'd imagine. What part of the time that I'm at work counts as work? Okay, so these are all the result of lawsuits, essentially. So basically, the key words here are principal activities, but there's also a lot of ancillary activities, like prepping at a workstation. So I'm a fry cook, and I have to go in a half hour early to get my station ready for breakfast. Do I have to be paid for sitting there from 5 to 5:30 while my station heats up? Sure, right? Because that's prep at a workstation. I'm changing in and out of protective gear. So, for example, when you manufacture microchips, you have to go through all these like sterility chambers and get gowned out because you can't have these sort of carcinogens on your body when you're manufacturing microchips. So that takes if you've ever done one of those plants, it's pretty wild. It takes 45 minutes to get from where you change into your protective gear, walking through all these chambers of sterile air to get to the plant. Okay, that's all compensable. Travel when it's part of your workday is compensable. So say I'm a home health nurse. I leave home and I go to Nightingale. Am I compensated for that? No, that's commuting. Okay? Then I go to Nightingale and I pick up my load sheets for the day. Who am I going to visit and what cases? Then I drive to my 5 patients over the course of the day. Right? Am I paid for the travel between the patients? Sure. Am I paid going home? No, commuting, right? So anything that's part of your principal workday, you have to be compensated for. Then I'm working on that microchip line for Intel, and the line goes down, and we're waiting for somebody to come maintain the line. Do they have to pay me? Sure. So these, like I said, are all the results of lawsuits, most of them. Okay, if your company gives you a rest period that's less than 20 minutes, they cannot make you check out. This is violated all the time. You have to take a break and you have to check out. They can't make you check out if it's less than 20 minutes. Okay, it's a rest period. Meal periods. Meal periods, they cannot make you check out if you're not allowed to leave your workstation. So here's your lunch break, but you're still manning the front desk. Right? That's not, they can't make you punch out with that. That's still compensable time. Work at home is a principal activity for a non-exempt employee. What am I talking about? Give me an example of a non-exempt employee that would work at home.
Some accounting,
I'm sorry?
some accounting books, some.
So if I'm a CPA, am I exempt or non-exempt? Probably exempt as a professional, right? What about if I'm an entry-level bookkeeper that's pretty much doing mostly data input? Probably non-exempt. So my employer puts me on a salary, pays me $2,100 a month, and says, oh my gosh, we've got to have all this data for payroll for our biggest client in by Monday morning, and if you're not done Friday by 5, you need to take home the data input. Okay? That's compensable time over the weekend. Now, if I'm a CPA and they're like, you gotta get these tax returns out by Monday morning, I'm just gonna take home and do them because I'm non-exempt, or I'm exempt, right? If I'm non-exempt and I work at home, I have to be compensated for it. And if I took 40 hours, they've got to pay me time and a half, right? And it's viable enough records just to hand report it, right? They accept in court. Of course, a lot of it's now used like notes on our phone or whatever, but I mean, they will absolutely take handwritten notes, work from 2:15 to 4:45 on Saturday afternoon. I'm sitting in my living room doing the state input remotely. Yeah, that's compensable time. Sleep. Who gets to sleep at work? You get paid for it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Did you say night auditors? Yeah. Like night auditors, people that work with kids in the youth homes, people that work at geriatric facilities, right? Huh?
I never really did sleep all night on it. I used to do that. It was definitely not.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Different first.
So if you were allowed to sleep, you would, if you're on task for less than 24 hours, if that's part of your principal activity, you've got to be compensated. Training sessions, you got to come in on Saturday, we're going to all learn how to use Windows 10. You got to be compensated. Waiting for a doctor's appointment on site, I'm waiting to get UA because I'm a truck driver, and I got to come in and sit there for 40 minutes to pee in the cup, they got to pay me for it. Obviously, that's a really specific lawsuit case. Non-compensable activities, in other words, what don't they have to pay you for? Absences due to illness. They can dock you if you've got some sort of time card or digital clock in or iris scan or however however your employer assesses that you exactly were on the job site. They can dock you based upon whatever the system is. Some companies have their time clocks or whatever their system is, so it's 15-minute increments, some are 10, and some are 6. Okay? So in a 15-minute system, if you're 3 minutes late, guess what? It's less than a quarter of an hour of pay. Okay? Whatever's in place, they can't jack it around from week to week or person to person. You got to have one policy, it's got to be non-discriminatory, apply to everyone. But if that's in place, you could lose a quarter hour pay if you're late. And you have to be paid for whatever the fractional parts of an hour are. So if I pay 6-minute increments, right, that means I've got 10 increments an hour I pay in. You've got to be paid according to my published policy. Okay, and I can keep time however I want. I can do it by entering in a remote computer or an iPad. I can have a card that I swipe. In some of the more sophisticated plants, they've got next generation technology. My older son works at Tesla, and it's obviously got a lot of non-disclosures, and they're working on a lot of very highly intellectual property. He gets iris scanned to get in and out of his company. They're not. It's all biometrics, right? Finger, you get scanned or printed to get in and out of lots of places. So at any rate, whatever they do, it's got to be verifiable, it's got to be backed up, and you got to keep records for 7 years. Okay, so let's take a look. What are the most, in your mind, common pay periods? In other words, how often is it common to get paid? What are the 4 most common schemes? What's one of them? One more time? Bi-weekly. If you're paid bi-weekly, how many times a year are you paid? You're paid every other Thursday, right? You're thinking semi. Bi-weekly is like every other Thursday, every other Monday, right? 52 weeks in a year, paid in 2-week increments, you're paid 26 times a year. I love this pay system because twice a year, you get 3 checks in a month, right? So it's like bonus. Okay, what's another one? Carla? Kara, sorry. Monthly. And how many times a year are paid if you're paid monthly? 12. Okay. David, what else?
Semi-monthly.
Okay. How does semi-monthly differ from bi-weekly? Huh?
You get 2 paychecks a month.
Right. So how many times a year are you paid? And then obviously the last one is weekly. Now, this looks pretty obvious, but I will tell you why am I kind of out of focus? There we go. We're moving into doing some calculations. You should probably get out your calculators and a pencil. And the first thing when I give you somebody's pay system is you've got to annualize it. In other words, if I tell you, I'm going to pay you $1,343 and I pay semi-monthly, what are you going to have to multiply it by to get your annual salary? 24, right? I pay you 24 times a year. Or I can say, hey Donna, I'm going to hire you and I'm going to pay you $3,000 a month, but I cut checks bi-weekly. So I'm quoting a monthly salary, right? But I pay bi-weekly. So you're going to have to take her $3,000 and do what with it first and annualize it? Yeah, multiply it by 12, right? If I'm quoting her a monthly salary of $3,000, if I want to get her annual number, I've got to annualize it by multiplying by 12. But if I want to get how much her gross paycheck is, then I have to take the annual number and divide by what? 26, because I pay bi-weekly, right? Do you see where I'm going with this? You get, like here, for example, everybody's quoted, whether you're staff or faculty, you're quoted a monthly salary. Okay? Some people are paid over 10 months, some people are paid over 12. That doesn't really matter. That's more complicated than I want to get. But, and faculty's paid monthly, so whatever they quote me is what my gross is, right? But staff is paid semi-monthly. So what does that mean? Yeah, they're paid twice a month. So if I annualize my salary, I multiply by 12, and I get my gross by dividing by 12. If I give you their salary, I annualize by multiplying by 12. But then I've got to divide by 24 to get their gross paycheck. So do you see what you have to pay attention to here? All right, so let's take a look at some examples. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. Here are the 5 steps. So again, you're non-exempt. You're a receptionist in my veterinary clinic. and I quote you a salary of $2,069 a month. Okay? The first thing that you've got to do is annualize the salary. Yeah, this isn't an actual numerical example, I'm just going to say this verbally, and then we'll look at some screens and got real numbers. So to annualize the salary, you would multiply by 12, right? Annualize means convert it to a one-year number. Then, and this is, okay, I write these slides, it's got to comply with what the authors of the textbook tell us to do. I don't necessarily agree that everybody has to go to weekly, because if you're not paid weekly, why are you doing that? But just stick with me that we're going to go through these slides, and then I'll show you how to apply it. So, whatever you get the annual salary, obviously to get to weekly, divide by 52, and then to get the hourly, divide by 40. So now I know what you make an hour, right? And my overtime rate is 1.5 times that. 1.5 times my regular rate. So then, number 5, I've got to add my overtime to whatever my regular gross paycheck is. So it's the same 5 steps over and over, except for I think, and then number 2, I'm not going to figure out weekly gross if you're not paid weekly. If you're paid bi-weekly, I'm going to get to that. So let me just show you how I apply it. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so in this example, I've got somebody, obviously pretty entry-level person, and let's say they're going to be doing some just data entry for me. I'm going to work at the Northwestern Energy. And I quote them a $1,500 a month salary, and I pay weekly. And in one pay period, they work 43 hours. So this one I'm going to just walk you through, and then the next one I'm going to have you actually write down the 5 steps. So step 1, annualize. 1,500 times 12. So annual salary, 18,000. Step 2, calculate regular gross paycheck. Well, in this case, they are paid weekly, so I do divide by 52, right? But if they were paid bi-weekly, what would you divide by? 26. These guys are paid weekly.
I think it implies of overtime, you want to bring this to be 4 hours a week is full.
Right. So in this case, they're paid weekly, so their regular paycheck is $346.15, right? I think, and stick with me here on the 3rd bullet, that the best way to get to hourly wage is to take the annual salary divided by the number of hours in a work year. So here's what I think your steps should look like. Step 1, 1,500 times 12, right? What would you call that 18,000? Is his or her what? Annual salary. Step 2, find the regular gross. How often am I paid a year? In this scenario, 52 times. Was it 346 when? Oh, 15. I wonder why it does that. Is that because my hand's under there then? Or? But then why doesn't it pop back? Yesterday it was working beautifully. I'm trying to sneak my hand in now. Okay, the 3rd step is take your annual salary and divide by the number of hours in the work year. How many hours are in a work year? How many weeks? Yep, and how many hours in a week? So a work year, if you're a normal person, is 2,080 hours. But that's not always true. Like, we're contracted for 1,390 hours, right? If you don't work, whatever, 13 weeks a year. So if you were getting my wage and you took my annual salary, you wouldn't divide by 2,080, you'd divide by 1,390. Or, nurses work 3/12s, let's say. So they don't work. They're not contracted for 52 times 40, they're contracted for 52 times 36. See what I'm saying? So in step 3, do this calculation. If you go up to 18,000 and divide by 2,080 hours, what do you get for hourly? Yeah, you go out to the third number and then round it 2 decimals. How much? $8.65 an hour. Okay. Step 4, how are you going to figure out overtime rate? Okay. What is that? Then, and like I said, in this example, it is weekly. They're paid weekly. But that's not, there's lots of different choices, aren't there? Biweekly, weekly, monthly, semi-monthly. So if you do it my way, where we go in number 3 and divide by annualized, divide by the number of hours, in number 5, you're just going to take the regular wage from number 2 plus the overtime rate times the number of hours of overtime. And that is going to be what they're paid. Could you work this whole thing if I told you that they were paid semi-monthly? Okay, let's just do that in the last 2 minutes. Write down these 5 steps and tell me what her paycheck's going to be if in one, what did I just say, semi-monthly? In one semi-monthly cycle, she had 3 hours of overtime. What would her paycheck be? In one semi-monthly cycle, she had 3 hours of overtime. So basically, the only differences here, is there any difference in step 1? Nope. What's the difference in step 2? Right, so how much is the regular gross paycheck? One more time. Exactly. Step 3, any difference? No. Step 4, any difference? No. Step 5, I just go right up, pick their regular gross paycheck up from number 2. So the regular gross paycheck is $750 plus 3 hours of overtime. See what I'm doing? It's a little different from the slides. I tried to talk to the office about this and I don't know why they're so stuck on going to the weekly gross, because if you're not paid weekly, why do I care what your weekly gross is? Okay. Friday, we will spend all day doing calculations. Don't miss Friday. Homework will be due on Monday. Okay?
Do you want us to do it? Do you want us to?
I want you to do it my way. Yeah, it's not a democracy in here. I'm an autocrat.
Didn't know logical explanation for that and all like, to do it that way. I'm trying to think, what are you thinking?
I don't know, honestly. I think sometimes